Welcome to Evolving Women, where we talk real invention, purpose in midlife, and what it means to rise into who you were always meant to be. I'm Teresa Lysam, and today's conversation is one more reminder. It's never too late to rewrite your story. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Evolving Women. I'm Teresa Lysam, and I am here with my amazing guest co-host, Sue Brown. Hi, Sue. Welcome.
Hi,
We're so
Teresa. So
glad.
nice to see you.
Oh, I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for taking the time to be here. So we're going to just dive right in today. And I know when we talked prior to this, and we share a similar audience, which you'll hear more about that as we get into our conversation. But women stepping into new identities and new roles and new ways of showing up in the world as we move through our lifetime. It just seems like that's a common thread that happens to so many of us. Is it a woman's thing only? Is it a man's thing? Like, I don't know, because I'm only approaching it from the women's point of view. But we step into these roles either intentionally or they're dropped on us or forced on us, and we just have to figure it out. So I'm sure you have some of those similar stories where you had to recreate yourself or step into a new identity. I'd love for you to share, Sue, if you would, please.
I'd be happy to. So, Teresa, just so you know, background-wise, I'm a nurse, right? So I went to high school and I went to school to become a nurse. And I worked as a nurse and I worked as a nurse for many, many years in a lot of different roles. I was in leadership. I worked in patient psychiatry. I worked in patient medicine. I worked in research. So I did a whole lot of different things over time. And who I was as a person wasn't necessarily related to how I took care of myself, right? I was pretty darn good at taking care of other people because that's something you
Mhm.
learn to do. And
Yeah.
as you were talking earlier about women, that's one thing we're often taught to do as young girls. And
Mhm.
I was not only taught to do that very, very early on. My mother had some issues, as many of us do, and you learn how to take care of things. I got pretty good at taking care of things. And I was able to do that at work, and I wasn't very good at taking care of me.
Mhm.
So it was first way later in life that, and I'm going to tell you a bit of my story if you don't mind.
Please,
Um,
please.
I was heading towards retirement, and I was doing okay. I'm in many, many ways. But by the time I was about 60, I had over 100 pounds to lose.
Mhm.
And even as a health professional, knowing what that means, I wasn't so good at taking care of myself. And the reason I say that is I had tried everything multiple times and it wasn't working for me. And so I was trying, but I wasn't getting where I needed to go. And I couldn't really make that align, particularly with who I wanted to be in whatever happened next, because I knew I wanted to do something in retirement, but not what. And I knew I wanted it to work because if not, all I would do is shop and eat, right? Which are kind of related because when you're eating, you have to buy more clothes. And when you're losing weight, you have to buy more clothes. It's just a never-ending circle. You go around and around again, which I
Mhm.
had done, honest to God, for the large majority of my life. I actually had 10 sizes of clothing.
Wow.
Um, before leaving Rochester, New York, where I'm from, to move on to other places. So, what ended up happening, and this is where I think it gets into identity, is I got to the point where I realized I had to do something. I had to make a very significant life change, look for something that was going to help me make a change long term,
Mm.
which I did. And I ultimately ended up losing 120 pounds for the last time. And that's actually opened the door to what I was going to do next in my life. I went back to school. I became a health and well-being coach. I got certified by the International Coaching Federation last year. And I think part of that was me saying, I want to help other women because I know a lot of people capable, people who worked and could be productive, families, took care of other people, who
Mm-hmm.
struggled in so many ways in caring for themselves. And many of us get caught with what is sometimes called the good girl's drug, which is sugar.
Mm.
So much more than you asked for, but I
No,
hope it
no,
helps from the
thank
identity
you.
perspective of going from, knowing I was capable at so many things, but not really believing I could lose weight for the last time until I ultimately did.
Well, I think that's the big thing is that belief,
Mhm.
believing we can do a certain thing, believing we could change,
Mhm.
believing we can change for the long term. Like that belief, I heard there's a gentleman I follow, his podcast, and his one of the things I first heard him say was about belief, how belief is the underlying uh, foundation of like everything. And like I couldn't take that at first. Like I was like, yeah, I was questioning it. And the more I've heard it, and just in conversations such as this, like, oh, I totally get it now.
Mhm. I think belief in some ways is also how you set yourself up for success.
Yeah. Do you believe you can be successful?
Mhm. And then putting the pieces in place so you have the support and, quite frankly, the systems that are going to work for you. I had systems that worked for me somewhat, but when they broke, I didn't have any options other than I ended up going the wrong direction.
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking, oh, I'm going to be fine. I'm going to move along. I'm going to be just fine. And then suddenly I fell off the side of the cliff and I knew what it felt like because I'd done it so many times.
Wow, I that's interesting. Systems. When your systems fail, crumble, need to change. I never
Mhm.
really thought about that. So you're changing your own belief about yourself, stepping into a better version of yourself. Your systems are crumbling, so you have to recreate or build new systems. Like I never really thought about the system part of it. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and if you think about it from that perspective, and that's one of the things I now work with others on as well, is they have to be systems that become part of your life and
Mm-hmm.
really embedded in your life so that healthy living is how you do what it is you do. You don't really think about it. It's just
Right.
normal. And if you have
Right.
an off day, that's fine. You go back to where you were.
Right.
And some folks have more flexibility with that going back. But that's something also you learn and you build systems around that. So what are you going to do in the morning? How are you going to plan your meals?
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to get your exercise? How are you going to make sure you get sleep? How are you going to make sure you have enough time to have fun? Because some of us come from the I work really hard and I get things done. We're not so good at the fun part.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And we may not be as good at the connection part, especially if we work at home and work alone. Yeah,
Or
primarily.
acknowledging our wins and our successes.
Absolutely.
You know, like women especially, man, we have just not been very good at that.
No, no. And we're not always that good at recognizing others for that either.
Well, that's we're getting better, I think. I think we're it's easier to acknowledge others than it is to acknowledge ourselves in terms of wins.
I agree with that. And I think it's also easier to acknowledge folks as we go along in life, perhaps, than it is early on. At least I know I found that.
Well, and that could stem from programming that we were,
True.
brought up with.
Yeah.
But and that's where so my coaching modality, practice, technique is all about helping women align with who they are so they can make better choices and better decisions in terms of wellness or relationships or whatever. So when you were talking about that, I was like, oh yeah, I could see where it's important to have a really clear awareness about yourself so that you
Hmm.
can find systems, find things that work for you. And if it's not working, then you got to be okay with shifting and
Hmm.
pivoting. And, so there's all these different elements and layers involved in this. So it might sound easy when we're talking about it, but when you're going
Mm-mm.
through it, it's not easy.
No, it's not easy.
Like, you know
Yeah.
yourself, you went through a lot of different things.
Mhm. Oh, absolutely. And I think it's the systems, but it's also, as you're saying, kind of doing a real clear evaluation. Is it working? Is it not working? And if it's not working, what am I going to do differently? And
Hmm.
perhaps getting help if you need it.
Right, right. Sometimes we need that person outside of our head,
Mhm.
that objective third party, second party, whatever, that can show us what's tripping us up or give us other
Mhm.
suggestions, or because we create these stories, these narratives in our head
Absolutely.
that we can't see beyond.
No, no, because we've taken it at some point in our lives to be truth, whether it's true or not.
Yes, exactly, which comes down to that belief. That
Mhm.
whole
It does.
basis of our beliefs kind of drive us to certain behaviors and
Mhm.
certain paths to follow. So just giving ourselves permission to pivot and to make some changes, and I'm going to explore this and get curious about this. Sometimes I think we get into these habits and these systems and processes, like you said, that are not working for us, but they're just so habitual, we
Yeah.
can't see beyond them, even if
Mm.
they're broken.
Yeah. And it's easier at some point, right, to stay where you are, even if it's
Yes.
painful.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
there has to be
For
enough
sure.
pain to be able to move forward, perhaps, and make changes.
Right. Right. And that's easier, again, easier said
Hmm.
than done.
It's true.
But there's a couple of things I'd like to come back to, but this whole idea of our own self-care, like prioritizing ourselves. We can be very successful in so many areas of our lives, but yet we have forgotten to prioritize ourselves,
Hmm.
our own wellness, our own self-care, our own nervous system regulation, to throw a big
Yeah,
phrase out there.
true.
Um, And so, again, to have somebody such as yourself or some mentor that you read, in a book, something that can help you see those things
Mhm.
and, like, oh, yeah, maybe I'm not taking care of myself. Maybe I could do one little thing that's going to prioritize, because we can know it intellectually that, oh, I need to be taking more care of myself, but to put it into action and to make a plan for it is a whole different thing. So I like to think of it
Is.
as baby steps. Pick
Mhm.
one thing you
Mhm.
could do.
Yeah. And it's not only baby steps, you're absolutely right about that. That's why I think that's one of those things about coaching where folks, as a coach, you can help really kind of dig in, help somebody perhaps identify some of those limiting beliefs they may not even see,
Right,
and
exactly.
then go get to the point where you're saying, okay, not only they help work with them to help identify a baby step that is going to work for them because they've really got to be engaged and bought in, but then help them with accountability. Because I
Yes,
think
yeah.
it's not only, right, you've seen this, I'm sure, with your own
Mm-hmm,
practice, where you've got
mm-hmm.
somebody who's like, yeah, I'm all in, I'm ready to do this. But then when it comes time to doing, not so easy.
Right, right. So to have somebody to kind of hold your hand,
Hmm.
lock arms with you to help you at least bridge the gap until it is a positive
Yeah.
habit that is self-sustaining. You might just need somebody just for a little bit to get you to
Yeah.
that point.
And then you can watch yourself, oh yes, I can do this,
Right.
and gain the confidence around it to
Right.
be able
Once
to
you have
say,
that
yep,
awareness. Yeah.
yep, I can
Yeah.
move this piece forward, right? And then,
Mhm.
hopefully over time, just add a little piece at a time based on where you're going. Some folks are all in all at once. Other folks are like, nope, I'm going to do this piece first. I'm going to settle that piece in, and
Yeah.
then I'm going to move on.
Yeah.
It's
Again,
all
what
good.
works best for each person.
Hmm.
Don't allow yourself to be put into a box and, of somebody else's making. Like, you could try it out, but if it doesn't work, then
Yeah.
pick something different. That's something that, again, is easier said than done.
Hmm.
But I do want to come back to the whole age thing.
Hmm.
So we are not youngsters, we shall say, And I believe both of us later on in life made a change, trying something different, have given ourselves permission to explore, to start a business, to go into coaching. Like that's a big deal.
Mhm.
And not everybody will allow themselves to do that. I have some friends, they just don't get what I'm doing. Like I spend my days talking to people like you and trying to learn
Mhm.
how to build funnels, and I need this type of a platform. So now I got to learn that, and embracing AI, and like I get all these things that I've had to learn over the last 5 years, and they really can't relate because that wasn't their path. That I'm sure they're thinking in their head like, why are you even doing that? Like what? And they're just living their retirement, their best life ever, and I'm doing something different. And I don't know if it's an age thing, like you get to a certain age and you don't have to think about that stuff. But I've connected with so many ladies that age is irrelevant to them. Like they got an idea, they're going to go with it, they want to try something, and they're excited, and they're on fire, they're enthusiastic. And I love that. I love when women get to a certain point in their life and they're like, I got to do something different. I want to do something more impactful, something more fulfilling. And then it just blossoms into something beautiful. Or maybe it doesn't, but they're still trying. I love all that. What's your thoughts around that?
One of the things I do when I work with people, and if you think about it, I think a lot of us do as coaches, is really kind of figure out what somebody's why is. What is it they really want most? Right. And trying to, whether, I mean, I know I mostly work in the health space, people work in different spaces because it can be difficult to figure out yourself. You just kind
Mhm.
of follow through, kind of like, oh, this is what my parents did, or this is what my siblings did, or my friends are doing, etc.
Right, right, right.
And I think some of it is self-motivated, so it goes back to identity. You really have to want to do something different. And then perhaps it's a balance saying, okay, I want to work part-time. I want to do something I really love, but I want to have enough time to, perhaps to travel or do whatever it is you most want to
Mm-hmm.
do. Um, so when I think of that, I think that is getting back to identity. Who is it you really want to be? What does your best
Mm,
self look like? Right? So, and I shared this with you, I'm 66. This is what I wanted my best life to look like. I couldn't
mm,
have seen that at 59 when I realized if I don't make a serious long-term change, I've got a big problem and I can see it. I can see it in my future. Right?
mm-hmm.
And I know a lot of folks do kind of that visioning work where you go to think of your future self. What do you look like
Yep,
10 years out? What's
yep.
going on for you? And where are you? And what is it you're doing? And for some folks, hanging out in retirement, it's a win. They've been looking forward to that the whole
Yeah,
time. Whereas I already knew that I needed to do something because that wouldn't have worked for me. Not 100% of the time. Now, on the other hand, traveling, oh yes, count me in.
mm-hmm.
But that was also part of my impetus for making big changes because I knew I didn't have the health and the mobility which I knew I needed to have to do what I wanted to do. So I think that's part of that digging deep. And so you've met some wonderful people, I'm sure, along the way where they're
Mm-hmm.
like, whoa, check out what you've been able to do. And it really works for you. But my guess is also, on the other hand, you mentioned your friends are living their best lives. Maybe that's what works for them.
Exactly. And that's perfectly fine. And I applaud them. But I love what I'm doing as well. And,
Mhm.
I wouldn't be here talking to you if I didn't have that path that I'm following. Now, do I have a complete picture where it's going? Not really.
Yeah, I don't think many people do, but at least you've got a direction, like a North Star.
Right, right. And I know it's fun and I want to do it as long as it's fun. and when it gets to the point where it's just drudgery, which many people get to that point in a job, their career, their job, then I will try something different, just stop it, whatever. But I know those people that are in a job that they're not happy with, they just
Yeah.
stepped into it by default because it was presented to them and they just took it because they needed it because of a family
Hmm.
responsibilities and that saddens me that that's what we've been programmed to do. Like
Yeah.
you just take it and it makes a certain amount of money, then you're good. You count yourself lucky. But then they're stressed and they're unhappy and that just really saddens me. I wish we could get out of that mindset and trust that we can find something that makes us happy and rewards us monetarily all at the same time. There would be a lot less stress in the world. But we're at that point, and I, again, during my conversations with other women, there is a turning point. There is a place they get in their lives where, yeah, like you said, things have to change. It
Mhm.
doesn't matter the age. It could, it runs the gamut. But is that a maturity thing? Is that a hormonal thing? Like, what is that? Just a self-awareness thing? But it seems to be a very, very common thread.
Hmm. And I think it may be different for each person. Sometimes it's something that's happened, some circumstance. So a change perhaps in their family situation or their work situation. So it could be, even though it might have started external, I think for folks really to make some of those deep changes, even if it starts external, it ends up being internal.
Right, right.
Because if they
Good
don't
point.
have that really strong internal drive, it's harder. And
Good
I
point.
think is not only harder, but the sustainability is harder. And the work that you need to do, because even, for example, I often work with women trying to, like you, trying to make healthy living work in their lives. But there's a lot of trial and error, and you have to have essentially the wherewithal to say, I'm going to try this week, and if it doesn't work, I'm going to try something else. So it's okay for me to run an experiment, and I'm not going to beat myself up about that. It's okay, and I'm going to have enough wherewithal and esteem that I'm trying to do something that not everybody tries to do.
Right, right.
And if it works, great. And if it doesn't work, I'm moving on to what's next because
Mm-hmm.
I can and because I want to.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I love that attitude. Um, I also have noticed a common thread with women I've talked to, and you shared this already, but maybe you can speak more about it. You found something that worked for you in terms
Mhm.
of losing your weight, losing that weight. You had to try different things. You found something that worked, and now you want to help other women
Mhm.
move through it faster. Like, I just find that fascinating that that is so true so often. Like for me, like I found this whole concept of strengths and aligning with who you really are. And it helped me see my value and it was so empowering for me
Mhm.
that I want to help other women feel the same way. You want to help women create better self-care
Mhm.
routines and be healthier. It's just so I love that what happens for us and works for us, we want to
Mhm.
share that and give that to other people.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's part of the beauty of being a coach is being able to say, you know, I understand this at a pretty visceral level.
Yeah,
I've been
yeah.
there or a variation of wherever, somebody else might be, so that you kind of bring in your life experience as well as your experience with change, to be able to share and support somebody on their journey. Um,
Hmm.
how about if I give you an example? Kind of
Please.
supporting somebody on their journey. Um, I work with folks individually as well as small groups. And what I find is that having the support, being able to ask questions and understanding why makes just this enormous, enormous difference. Um, and some of it is just, I don't necessarily know, why this isn't working for me. I'm going to give you a small example unrelated to food. I worked with a woman who, um, her office was right by where she parked. So she only walked in and out of the office. That's all she did every day. And she knew she needed to do something more because she was heading towards retirement and wanted to not
Mm-hmm.
have a problem. And so we talked about it. We talked about different options, and she decided she'd start walking a little bit, a very little bit. And I honestly, I sent her some articles. We started with her buying sneakers, right? It's the
Uh-huh. Yeah,
basics,
baby
right?
steps.
How do
Yep.
you do this? How do you build this into your life? And I
Mm-hmm.
keep in touch with her. So I think 4 years later, she's still walking.
Oh,
So
that's
how do you
awesome.
actually do these types of things? And of course, she's retired since too. How do you help somebody who's like, I know I want to do this, but you're right, maybe you just need somebody to hold your hand a little bit. I've
Mm-hmm.
worked with other folks. I'll give you another example, decluttering. It isn't always what you think it is. Sometimes it's people's environment. They need a little bit of help being able to walk through and more importantly, talk through
Yeah.
how am I going to tackle this? I have all these ideas. I don't even know where to start. And then, I also the weight side of things where I mentioned I don't eat sugar, I don't eat flour, I don't eat ultra processed food. When I work with folks, it's different sometimes. Some people, I've got somebody I'm working with now, she stopped drinking soda. That was her first piece, and that's as far, and she's working on chocolate next, right? So it's one piece at a time where I was like, no, I got to stop this completely because this is really causing me a problem. So I think part of it, and why I want to give a few different examples, is it's so different for each person.
Right.
I have
Right.
somebody else who was working straight during the day, but she didn't stop for lunch routinely. She wasn't taking care of herself that way. But she was wilting in the afternoon. By the afternoon, by the time she got home, she was beat. And of course, she was eating things she didn't want to be eating.
Yeah.
So what did we work on? We worked on lunch, right? So very different. And now she's got other folks helping her who work in her office, reminding her, have you had lunch yet?
Oh,
Right.
that's
So
great.
it sometimes, it takes a village, I think, for all of us, but sometimes it really does take somebody with you, supporting you during some of the hard parts. So I got help from a coach when I was going into maintenance because I knew I had gotten there before and I was never able to stay there before.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew I needed help. So I think that's the other thing is for folks to recognize that getting help is a good thing,
Right.
right?
Right.
Because if it was so easy, you would have done it already, right?
That
Folks we
is
work with are really smart and they can do a lot of really good stuff. And if there's a place you're stuck, getting help is quite honestly a smart thing to
I
do.
was just going to say, yes, I have a sibling who, in my mind, asking for help is, she sees it as a weakness. And I know other people that
Mhm.
think the same thing. Like, if you can't figure it out yourself, then there's something wrong with you. And, like we have this independent type of thing that we, especially here in the States, like we just think it's all about being independent and be able to do your own thing. And that's not true. Like you said, the smartest thing you could do is get some help. And I love this from a mentor that he says life is not a DIY project. It's not a do it yourself project. Like, we need others. We're in community. That's where we thrive. But some of us have kind of gotten away from that for
Mhm.
multiple reasons. We're not going to get into all of them here, but just to have that understanding like, oh, we are all in this together. It's okay to reach out. It's okay to get an accountability partner. It's okay to ask for help as you got through that particular
Mhm.
maintenance until you were able to do it on your own. Like, it doesn't have to be forever. It only has to
No.
be for a short term
Mhm.
until you're good, and then you could move on by yourself, you know,
And
or
I think it depends on the person because sometimes when I work with folks, and I don't know about you, but I see that I talk to them much more frequently up front. And then over time, it gets less so as they become more comfortable and ready to move
correct,
on. You know,
correct.
and also talking about what you mentioned as far as not asking for help, I think that goes back to what you were saying before about beliefs.
Mm-hmm. That is so true, man.
Yeah.
See, the more I thought about it, the more it started to make
Mhm.
sense.
Yeah.
But first hearing it, it's like, nah, that's not true. But it's almost like once you see something, you can't unsee it. You know,
Mhm.
once I heard that, it's like, oh, yeah, no, it's,
Mhm.
I'm starting to see evidence of that all over
Yeah.
the place. But I love what you were saying. And I think as coaches, we ask questions. We ask good questions. You can ask good questions of yourself, you know, asking the
Mhm.
questions that are going to give you a different way of thinking, a new
Mhm.
perspective. Like, so, yeah, I know we've all heard that before. The quality of your questions determine the quality of your answers. So
Mhm.
that's, and so a coach can do that. And we just have tools, like we're
Mhm.
offering tools that, yes, you can use for yourself.
Yeah.
And we're freely giving you the tools that you can adapt, use in the way that's going to work for you. That we might not, people might not be aware of those tools until that outside person comes in and says, hey, look at how I got all this smorgasbord of tools to pick from. You
Mhm.
know, which one would work for you?
Yeah. And like you, I offer all sorts of tools to people I work with, again, based on what they need, what they're
Yes.
interested in, and where their path is going to take them.
Yeah. And teaching
Um,
teaching women to fish, not just to providing the fish. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because that's the whole idea. Because in the long run, based on who they are and what they want to do, they may be teaching somebody else to fish.
Yeah, yeah. And I love the whole idea of generational. So you're leading by example. I'm leading by example. We're like setting those examples in motion so that those who come after us can see, oh, yeah, that's probably a good idea. Maybe I need to put some self-care practices into my life now
Mhm.
as a younger person so that as I get older, because I always thought like I didn't come to this understanding of stuff till I was well into my mature adulthood, we shall
Yeah.
say. And I always wish I had had that information well in advance of that. So I like to think of us, you and me, and other coaches like
Mhm.
this is our legacy. We're being the examples, we're changing the paradigm, we're breaking the stereotypes so that other young women can, like, oh, okay, that that's a good idea. So
Yeah.
go us. Boom.
That's true. It's very true. And
And
people look and they say, wow, that looks pretty cool. How'd you do that?
mhm. Yeah, and then we
Yeah.
could go ahead and share that with them. So, so many things we can talk about, but I think we have to wrap it up though to keep it within our 30-minute time frame or thereabouts. This has been so delightful. I just am so thrilled to have you here and to have you speak with us. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you might want to share or repeat or reiterate before
Um,
we let everybody
just
go?
one thing I wanted to share, if anybody wants to learn more about me or my story, or get some tools, you can find me at my website. And I'm Sue Brown. And actually, my website is www.suebrowncoaching.com. So I'm easy to find there, or you can email sue@suebrowncoaching.com. And on my website, I not only have my before and after pictures, but I also have pictures over time. And I know that was something that always motivated me was to see other people's story and
Yeah.
see what it actually looked like. Again, based on what it is that's important to them. And as you were saying, where do you want to go? I used to
Mhm.
say, what do you want to do when you grow up? And, I'm still in that process, but
Yep, yep, yep.
I just consider myself so very lucky to be able to do what it is I do. Um, and of course meet people like you along the way. So truly
Mhm.
appreciate our time together,
Oh,
Teresa.
thank you so much. And I love that you said, "What do I want to be when I grow up?" I've like thought the same thing my whole life.
Yeah,
Like, what do I want to be when I grow up? Like, I don't know. Well, we'll try this.
yeah. You
It's
just keep
just so
evolving. It's
it's
good.
just so fun. It's just so
Yeah.
fun. Yes, I always want to be evolving. I don't want it to stop
Mhm.
because if it does, then I guess I'm done here.
Yeah, I feel the
So,
same way.
so thank you so much for everything you're doing out there in the world. We will drop Sue's contact info in with this description with the show notes so you can, find her that way. SueBrownCoaching.com. Thank you so much. So appreciate you, Sue. Thank you to everybody who's listening in. If you find this to be helpful for you and for somebody you might want to share it with, please share it. And I'm going to bring in my little sign here, do all these things on here. Subscribe. We would love to get this out to other women, so please feel free to share. And if there's anything you'd like to share with us in the comments, we would love to hear that as well. So thank you, everybody listening. Thank you, Sue. We so appreciate you. We will see everybody the next time. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.